All right, we're here with Padraig, our master pruning specialist, who's going to be training us in how to do our fruit and nut tree pruning and grafting project here in Portland. So Padraig, why don't you teach us how to do a basic pruning on just a general fruit or nut tree, the basics that we need to not butcher each other's trees and to do it right.
You should look at your tree, think about it. Where is it going to grow? What is it going to do? That's what I'm doing right now as I'm rambling, is I'm also looking at the tree and thinking, where will it grow?
Okay, so on the bud, let's
see right there, there's a little outer bud where I'm pointing my finger to.
Yep.
I'm going to this, rather than this, I'm not cutting here, I'm cutting here. That's the bud that's going to be the dominant one. This branch will continue in this direction. I want the tree to have more vigor. I want to leave more leaves, more energy, more growth, reaches maturity sooner. You want a lot of branches to be fruit bearing, and at a fair angle, something like 60 degrees is kind of like your magic number, to bear the most heavily, to bear the most fruit. Drooping will tend not to have as much fruit production in the long run. I also tend to remove anything that's really growing into the middle of the tree. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove these things that are growing right towards the center of the tree.
So when looking for a scion that we're going to select as a potential grafting candidate, we wanted to look for the younger shoots that had sugars.
One-year-old shoot, you can see the difference in color from the older growth, more than a year old, to this sort of red is now the one-year-old growth. A little bit hardened up, it's been there long enough to gather some sugar. If it's really young, it doesn't have enough sugars in it to sustain itself while it's rooting. I want to cut one of these off because they're too close. I'm leaving one anyway. So something like this is a good scion.
Okay.
For making new roots.
So
for grafting to a rootstock.
This fresh one-year-old scion that about I've heard around 8 inches, 6 to 8 inches for the cutting, that you don't need a whole big long branch.
You don't use the whole branch, you usually use the bottom end of it, because the top end has fewer sugars than the lower end. And it's going to look like something like this depending on who your cutter is. Some people do very short ones, slightly different styles.
And so what we'll be doing for this project is keeping the scions for a month in our refrigerators. Make sure we tag them with the type and the name of, like if it's an apple, tag it with an apple tree, and then we'll be doing a scion exchange with other bright neighbors so we can have people get new trees.
All right, so I'm looking at this sort of jumble, which is is not conforming to any of these standard methods. There are more than one standard method for growing a tree. If I was doing cuttings, I don't go for things with spurs for making cuttings. One, the wood's too old if it has spurs on it generally. And go for younger stuff. And of course go for stuff that's not going to use. This is a younger branch right here. I can tell by the thin bark of a fresh color, non-gray color. So something like this would probably have better material. This looks like it's 2 years old up to here, and then right there where I cut it, you can actually see how the bark changes, and you can tell that last year's growth stopped to here, and then this grew. So this is probably your best for starting. One of the reasons we head back a branch is to make the branch sturdier. If you just let it grow and grow and grow, they tend to be loose and floppy and weaker. Do we want to pick our apples up here, or do we also want to be able to pick our apples down here? If we pick our apples down here, as a lot of people would like to do, that's very convenient. In this case, however, we want to do some gardening underneath the tree as well. It's a good thing to take your weight off so that the branch doesn't pull just before you finish your cut. The sugars are retained in the root, and so in spring, when the sap starts to move up, there's a lot of vigor, and whatever's left is sort of the recipient of all that vigor. And so these relatively few buds will put out a tremendous amount of growth compared to what they might have put out, which would have been less if I had left a lot of other branches on. It's kind of like some business investing all of their money in one business or a few businesses and really making it, instead of diversifying into a whole bunch with the same capital. I don't know, sugars and capital, is that a fair sugars and capital, is that a fair analogy? We have lost a lot of fruit production for 1 year on this tree. And because we have cut it back so hard. And because it'll take a couple years for the new growth and then the spurs to set flower.
So here's an example of a bad cut.
Yeah, that's just a little too close.
Okay, so, and correcting it?
Coming down to another outward facing bud here. Okay. So
right above.
Move the camera over here, you see this. Okay.
Ah, that bud.
Yeah. Give it a little bit of space.
Cool.
Okay. And that's going to grow if we branch in that direction. So as long as you follow the basic principles of opening it up and pruning for strength and pruning for fruit production, don't worry too much about it being just too perfectly symmetrical or anything. And as you prune and get together with your neighbors, you'll learn more. You'll have tips. And remember, there's a lot of different methods.
Well, thank you for what you're doing, Padraig. High five.